Welcome to the Embrace Strength podcast. I'm your host, Ashley Crocker. I am an experienced trainer and active life professional. I work with people who are struggling with nagging pain to get back to the activities they love without fear of re-injury. This podcast is here to educate and provide value to you on all things health, fitness, staying active, and personal development. Let's dive in. Alrighty, so welcome to the pod. Today I have one of my clients, Sierra, and it's really funny how our coaching relationship has evolved since I first knew her. She was actually my nutrition client many years ago, and then she became a coach herself. Then she started asking me questions about working with her own clients. She was always in my free stuff. I would do one-off calls with her for help with her clients. And then she joined my programming membership where I help coaches with their client case studies for $97 a month. Finally got her to join something of mine. That was somewhat of a commitment. And then she found her way into my one-on-one mentorship. She's also been through my group program, Mobility Makeover. And I had to have her on the podcast because in all the time that I've been working with you, I would say you're a completely different coach from when we first started working more closely together with how you work with your clients. Your quality of programming has increased tremendously, and I know your clients are getting better results because of it too. Your client roster is more full, your retention is better, so all the things. So I just had to have her on. So welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me. Yeah. It's funny when you list everything out because it's like, man, yeah, this has like been an interesting 5 years.
I know. What a journey. And so first, I want you to talk a little bit about how has your perspective on coaching clients changed since we've been working together?
I think the biggest thing is having a why and a reason behind everything that you do. I spent a few years coaching clients and kind of doing pretty much whatever I felt like programming at the time, and it might have a little bit of reason behind it. Like if someone wanted to work on balance, I would obviously incorporate like balance into those things, but I mean, now I look at clients completely different. It's like, okay, what are they struggling with? What are their limitations? Like how can I take them from A to B as efficiently as possible? And so they also can see the results. And yeah, literally everything I program now is so much more specific to each person.
Yeah, I love that. And I would agree that I remember when you were just in the programming membership and you'd have me review client programming and I'd ask you like, why did you program this? You'd be like, I don't know.
I felt like it.
Well, that's a problem. And so I love that you said that. So talk a little bit more about like some of the problems you were running into with your clients before we started working more closely together.
Yeah. Biggest thing was I didn't really have a way to figure out where the person was at. Like I had random, just like, can you do a push-up? Can you do a squat? Can you do a full depth squat? Can you do a plank? Like just random assessments. And it just like, looking back now, it's like hard because they just didn't make sense. And they didn't really give me the kind of data and feedback that I probably could have used. But then the other issue too is like, I was always creating new workouts every single time for each client. And if I had 10 people and I saw them twice a week, it's like, that's a lot. It was a lot of mental load. It's
well, that's so much. And it's just unnecessary changes.
Yes. Yeah. Well, and I even remember having a conversation one time because I didn't train like that. I didn't train myself in my workouts. Like mine were always a little more specific. Like I had the same routine every time. And I told a client that, and he was like, why don't you train your clients that way? And I was like, at the time, I think you have this stereotype of what a trainer should be doing.
Mm-hmm.
And when you're new, you kind of just follow that same grain of stereotype where you do just change things up constantly. And it's just random exercises that in your mind kind of make sense for the clients. Like, oh, they want to gain strength. Cool. I'm going to do literally like anything and everything that comes to mind. And then the other thing that really has been a huge impact from like then and now is I cannot tell you how many people, how many clients at the gym that I was working at would come in and they would have a shoulder replacement, a knee replacement, torn hip labrum. I had no idea what to do with that. Like
Mm-hmm.
they don't teach you these kinds of things in your certification.
Mm-hmm.
So I mean, I was doing a lot of the typical just, okay, this hurts, like let's maybe avoid that for today, or like, oh, here's a random stretch, like that's tight, like maybe this stretch will help. Like,
Mm-hmm.
that it just I never knew what to do, and they scared me to death. Taking on those
Right.
clients, oh man, it scared me to death. I was like, I hope I don't injure them or make them worse.
Mm-hmm.
Like they want this help, and it's like I'm not entirely sure how to get them progress. Like,
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think all of that is super common with coaches, especially in the beginning, because like you said, this your initial certification, it's just like very base level generic
yeah,
knowledge and not necessarily like, oh, here's all these specific nuance you might run into when you start coaching like real human beings.
100%, 100%. I really wish they did have a better like education base for this kind of stuff,
Mhm.
even for things like anatomy,
Mhm.
because I've told I've told other trainers that are newer, like if you can learn more about anatomy and like go beyond and get like continuing education beyond just the regular cert, you should, because I'm not even kidding. I probably used about 10% of my personal training certification. Everything else has been continuing ed or things I've learned from you.
Mhm.
Like everything.
Yeah.
I really wish that they had a better knowledge base, but they just don't. The
Mhm.
bar is on the ground for people to get
Yeah.
be personal trainers. It is.
Yeah, for real. So talk a little bit more about like how you were assessing clients before you started working with me, because you mentioned things like, oh, can you do a push-up? Can you do a squat? Like,
Mhm.
and I think this is so common with so many coaches. Like, this is how they quote unquote assess their clients, but it's like, what is that even telling you? So talk
Yeah,
a little bit more about how, like, knowing what you know now and you realize like, why was that so inefficient?
yeah. Well, I mean, as I said earlier, like for one, I would just see can they do a push up. And if it's like an older person, that obviously doesn't make sense. It's like, well, maybe a push up off of a box. You know what I mean? Like that in my mind, when I would program, at the very least, I had the intention of programming like a push pull, like squat, single leg kind of
Right.
programming, which is fine. So a lot of times the assessments would run along like the same lines of like, can they squat? Can they do a push up? Can they do a single arm row? And just kind of seeing how strong they were. Just like
Mm-hmm.
literally just like watching them, like, okay, how strong is this person?
Right.
You know what I mean? That
Mm-hmm.
was about as far as I went. Like I don't even remember much else other than those kinds of things. Like I think I had them do things like a rain row, like a body
Mm-hmm.
weight rain row. Oh, can you do this? Can you do this? It was a lot of just like, can you do this exercise? No.
Right.
Okay, how about this one?
Yeah. Yeah.
Like,
And you know, we're talking a little bit about like the stereotype of what a personal trainer should do, or like what a stereotypical like training session should look like. Talk a little bit more about like what that meant for you. Like in your mind, it was like, okay, you had this vision of like, this is what it should look like. Talk a little bit more about that.
Yeah, and I also struggled with the stereotype anyway, because in some ways I didn't fall into it. Because
Mhm.
for one, I think the biggest stereotype going into it was the assumption that you are giving the client like high intensity workouts pretty often, and
Mm.
you're like the kind of person who's like, the military sergeant, like, come on, you got this, like
Yeah, like a
really,
cheerleader, like
yeah,
go
yeah.
faster.
Trying to be like a cheerleader or like, yell at them to like go harder, or whatever. And we had trainers that were like that at the gym.
Mhm.
So that was like one stereotype, because I am not like that. And that was one thing I really struggled with, was like, I'm a lot more introverted. I'm a lot more quiet. It was
Yeah,
one reason I like group class coaching was really not great for me.
right. Yeah,
I can't yell very loud.
yeah.
So that was one thing. And then the second thing was just like every person I shadowed and watched also as a new trainer, they did something different every single time. It was
Interesting.
like there was a huge amount of variety, and a lot of the coaches I saw, like they were doing really high rep stuff. Like their
Really?
clients were doing like 15, 20 reps.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. And I I feel like those were the two biggest things that were very stereotypical. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that totally makes sense. It's like, that cheerleader, drill sergeant, like go faster, go harder, like you're gonna die, like type of vibe.
Yeah.
So I definitely know what you mean there. And like talk a little bit more about like did your client see results? Like how did you measure progress, or like talk a
Mm.
little bit about like, this old way that you were doing things and like the results you saw in your clients.
Okay, so that was a huge problem, is like I didn't have a system for figuring out if they were actually getting progress or not. I didn't have any like follow-up assessing. I didn't have any like mile markers really,
Mhm.
other than like, okay, we tried to do a push-up 6 weeks ago. Are we better at that or worse than that? Like it was just if that. If that. Sometimes I didn't even bother. Like
Right.
most of the time I just give them workouts and yeah, call it good. And oh my gosh, I'm like losing my train of thought here. The progress of results. Yeah, they honestly, I mean, they would get some strength. I feel like it was just not consistent enough to like see it. And it was really interesting once I did start changing my programming, because I had a lot more of my clients start commenting
Mm.
that they felt better, they moved better, that they were getting stronger. And I didn't necessarily have that before. And I think too, because of that reason, like my retention was a lot shorter. Like
Yeah.
my client retention for the most part was between like, I would say like 6 to 12 weeks, maybe.
Okay.
Versus now it's like more 6 months to like years.
That's huge. Like that's a really big shift. And I feel like that's something more coaches need to realize, need to hear, is that like if you do resonate with what Sierra is saying about the way she used to do things, you're probably also struggling with this client retention piece. And you're like, oh my gosh, like how am I ever going to make more money with this? Because I'm not retaining my clients. But actually improving your programming, creating a process. I mean, that's like double, triple, quadruple
Yeah.
client retention, right?
I think another thing too that was a really big change, and this is where you kind of came in, was
Mhm.
my confidence level
Oh my gosh, yes.
being a professional.
Yeah, talk more
And
about
like, yeah, like I I feel like I never really owned being a professional in this industry.
that.
Like
Mhm.
I kind of would let the client take the reins sometimes when maybe that wasn't the right thing to do.
Right.
Like I always listened and I was always very good at listening to the client's needs and like what they were looking for. But at the same time, if there was something that I didn't agree with or I didn't think would be good for them, like I just wouldn't say anything. I just
Yeah, you
go with
like let them walk all over you, basically.
yes, exactly. I think now, and I'm still working on this on occasion, just depending on how difficult the person is.
Right.
But I'm much better at confronting an issue that I'm like, I highly recommend doing ABC,
Yeah.
and this is why. And
Mm-hmm.
looking at it from that perspective of like, I have this knowledge, I have this experience, and you don't. This is what I'm telling you you probably should be doing and what I recommend doing. It's like at the end of the day, you're your own person. You can do what you want, but
Right.
this is what I'm telling you as a professional in my business.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Do you feel like your clients respect you more?
Yes, 100%.
Yeah, I think this is also super common with coaches is that you you don't see yourself as like, hey, I am this professional and like acting like it and owning it. And you guys let your clients walk all over you. And then you're like, why is my client walking all over me? It's like, well, you're not acting like a professional, right?
Yeah.
Like, and it's not like you have to come at your client and be like, you have to do this. Like, that's not the way you coach people, right? It's like, this is what I suggest based on my professional opinion. And here's why. That why piece is so huge because you also can't just bark orders at people because that's not coaching either. It's like, here's
Yeah.
why. I'm not just pulling stuff out of my ass telling you to do it, right? Like, there's a reason.
Yes. Yeah. 1,000%.
Yeah. So, talk a little bit about what motivated you to finally commit to working with me more closely because you were definitely someone who like does all the free stuff, does all the lower
Yeah.
level stuff. And I would always
Okay.
be like, I can help you so much more if you hire me one on one. Be like, nah. And I'm like, okay. But so talk a little bit about what finally like shifted for you.
Okay. I think this is probably a longer answer because just like how
Oh,
my
good.
career
Go into
has
it.
gone. But when I first began coaching, I started at a very community-based gym
Mhm.
and I was getting paid $20 an hour.
Yeah.
And this wasn't a gym that you could just like get floor hours on. You kind of had to just like wait for people to ask for personal training. You would get their
Mhm.
form and then you would give them a call. That
Right.
was like how you got the clients. So my first year, it was so difficult for me because I would have maybe 2 or 3 sessions in a week. And so that's like maybe $60, like
Yeah. I was like,
a
nothing.
whole lot. And I was very good with like trying to be patient. And at the same time, I had a nutrition coaching business on the
Mhm.
side. And I was making a little bit of money with that. But even with that, I was charging like $80 a month for like full
Right.
so
Yeah, for full access, weekly
yeah,
check-ins, all everything, $80 a
yeah,
month.
yeah. And I mean, in some ways, I think it was good because like it did get me experience, but like the
Right.
financial piece was just, it was not great. It was not good. Going forward from that, I think after my second year working at this gym, like I had more clients, but the pay was still just not great. And I love learning and bettering myself. So I really wanted to work somewhere that I could get that.
Mhm.
So at that point, I had an offer from a physical therapy clinic who had a gym attached to their clinic. So they would have their patients like kind of graduate from physical therapy and then they had this gym that they could get a membership at. They didn't currently have a trainer then. So they hired me on because I was going to get potentially more money working for them. And I'd get to work alongside the physical therapist. So I was like, sweet, I get to learn all these really cool skills and I get to do more actual personal training.
Mhm.
Was one of the worst decisions of my life.
Yeah, talk more about it.
Yeah, good learning experience for sure. Because I did learn a lot while I was there, but I only made it through about 6 months and I was really depressed. I was having anxiety attacks every single day. And I was miserable. I was like trying to make more money, and I was making a little bit more, but the work situation there was quickly changing into something that was not very fun. The manager was very micromanagey. They started asking me to work outside of my work hours and not be paid. Just really crazy things. And after 6 months, like I finally kind of was just I hit a breaking point and I quit that job and I was like, I don't need this. This is not worth it. So this was February of last year. I took a couple of weeks to just like not work essentially. It's like I had these clients at the YMCA, but it wasn't really enough to make an income. I had just quit this other job that I was working at the same time, and I had my nutrition business all going at the same time. So it was like 3 different jobs. And I was like, okay, I can either go full into my current job where I'm paid $20 an hour, or I can try to build my business and get it to be something bigger that is more sustainable, or I could try to do both. Like I just had all of these thoughts running through my head of like, I don't even know what to do. I'm done. I'm so burnt out. Like I just don't know what to do. So I finally did make the decision like, okay, I'm going to put everything I have into this business. I'm going to try and grow it as much as I can and see if I can get it to replace the job where I was making $20 an hour at this community gym. So I started doing that. I started trying to work on that, get a little more consistent on social media, but I was still just I was not getting the leads. I felt like I was really stuck and I was just constantly spinning my wheels and I just didn't have the skills to know how to grow a business, really. And again, I was like not making any money.
Right.
So then fast forward to, I don't remember when I joined your group coaching membership, but I remember like in July, maybe I was like in there.
I think you joined it. You joined it like right when I started it, which was last January. So I'm pretty sure you joined in like January of last year. And then it was like in the summer when you
Okay.
were.
Because I remember in July was when I finally like actually took the jump. Because you're right. Anything and everything you offered, like I'd get all your free stuff. I'd read your emails. I'd listen to your podcast. Like if you gave it out for free, I'd take it and like I'd utilize it. And I remember we had one conversation because we had like finished all of our talking about our clients and like programming and all that stuff. And that had been very helpful also. Like I felt like I was learning more. I was kind of getting a better idea of how to program for clients, but it was also vastly different from what I had been doing. So it was a little scary, but it was going really well. And then I started asking questions about like, oh, how can I make like Instagram better? Like how can I market myself better? And that's when you pitched me for your one-on-one.
Yeah.
And I remember I like in my heart, I really wanted to, but at the same time, I knew how much it was going to cost. And that was the part that like really scared me because I'm already not making a whole lot. But at the same time, like I'm really stuck where I'm at and I just am not able to move forward. Like nothing's happening and I just don't do.
Yeah.
So that was kind of like the point that I was like, I think it's worth the risk. And I had talked to one of your other one-on-one clients about and I like had a conversation with my husband and I was like, can we just try this and see how it goes? Like I committed to putting 110% into this business. Like might as well invest a little more in it. Yeah. And it was by far one of the best decisions I've ever made.
Yeah, I love that. And I was like so happy that you did finally decide to do one-on-one with me because I knew I knew it would change your whole life, but it was like, I can't make anyone do anything. And like, that's also one of the hardest parts of being a coach is like, you're talking to all these people and it's like, you know, you can help them so much, but at the end of the day, I can't make decisions for you guys. And so it has to be like, you also, as the coach, have to be ready to say yes to something and take a chance. But it is hard on the coach side of things. And you're like, I know I could really help you. So struggling so much, you know?
I know.
So,
And I do have to say as well, and I know I've talked to you about this previously, but that statement of like being ready, because that was another thing too, is before signing on for one-on-one, like I had done one-off calls with you for
right.
like a couple years, I think.
Yeah.
And a big problem that I know I was doing is you would give me this advice, you would tell me what to do, and then I would not do it. I would not follow through. I don't know if you knew that or not.
I didn't. I thought you were doing all of it. So why weren't you
did.
doing it? Because you didn't have any accountability?
No accountability. It also scared me to death. Every time you would tell me like, oh, you need to be like charging more for your stuff. I was like, no.
Yeah.
Which I feel like that was one of the biggest things you worked on with me, like the first couple months of one-on-one mentorship was just like the money mindset. It was like crazy for me. But in a way, I think because I had struggled so much for so long and then finally got to that point where I'm just like, I just don't know what I'm doing.
Right.
And I need help. And I know that if I have accountability, I will follow through. And by the time I did say yes, I knew that whatever you asked me to do, no matter how scary it was for me, I would still do it.
Right. Yeah. And you've done literally everything that I told you to do. Even if you're like, oh my God, Ashley, I'm so scared to do this.
Dude,
I'm like,
there
well,
were
it's
some
gonna grow.
calls. I know. And there were like literally there were some calls like I got off the phone with you and I like would start crying because I was like, I'm so scared to do this. Like, I don't want to go and do this thing she told me to do. But I mean, it was so good for me as well because it really did push me to go outside of my comfort zone. Like a lot.
Yeah, and I think that piece is so huge because as human beings, we don't want to be outside of our comfort zone like ever because our brains are trying to keep us safe. And that's like I'm the same way. Like I will not get out of my comfort zone unless I have accountability. That's why I also hired myself a coach because like I know if I'm paying somebody, I will do what they say. Even if I'm terrified, I think so many coaches are in this spot of where they know they need to do something to grow or change, but they're so scared. They're not doing shit because they don't have accountability to follow through on it. So then they just keep staying stuck.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So with that being said, talk a little bit more about like where things are at for you now. I mean, it'll almost, I guess it hasn't quite been a year yet, but probably around 9 months, I think, that we've been working together one-on-one.
Yeah.
And so talk a little bit about like where you're at now.
Yeah. Well, the growth since July has been insane. Like with where I am right now, I never would have dreamed, like in my wildest dreams, that I would be where I am right now. And really, like 9 months is not that long, in my opinion.
It's not. When you're actually in it, you're like, wow, 9 months isn't that long. Yeah.
Yeah. I would say like the first couple of months did feel like it was a bit slow because there was just like a lot of groundwork building, I think, because some of the first things you helped me do was like figure out my social media game because like I did not know how to write content that was specific for a specific person.
Yeah. You didn't even know like who your ideal client was.
No. Yeah. So you literally you were like, find an ideal client. Here's how to, figure out what that is and write it all down and be as specific as possible. And then, you kind of taught me how to speak to that person and appeal to them. And that was it was very interesting for me because you had a lot of just like little things that I didn't know,
Mm-hmm.
that you're supposed to do with social media. And even from that, like, you helped me with my website be more specific. You helped me develop my offers to be more systematic, have them actually make sense and like charge what they were worth.
Right. Mm-hmm.
That was the biggest thing too. Then and then on the other side of things with coaching, you started teaching me these methods of assessing people and really getting into depth of how to assess somebody, how to take that feedback and put it into the programming and then make the programming so it made sense for the person and their goals and like what they were struggling with. And that was, again, it was kind of slow for me at first, but then as I did it more and more and more, that was when I really started to notice that clients were coming to me. Like the first client, I really realized how big of a difference it was that I was training people in this way. She came to me and she had a bone spur under her kneecap and she had been told like, you're gonna have to get a knee replacement, and
Mm-hmm.
she didn't want one. And still scary, but I had you behind the scenes that you
Yeah.
were like supporting me, and you're like, you got this, like you have the skills, like here's how you're going to help this person.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, I did all the grunt work and then just had you review what I had, and you were like, yeah, that looks great. And so then I started implementing it, and this person was like, you've helped me more than my physical therapist ever did. Like I can actually move without pain. Like, yeah, I'm still kind of
Mm-hmm.
like limited in these ways, but I can actually move. I can actually walk up and down stairs, like relatively free, or at least under a certain threshold. And that was like really eye opening for me. And
Yeah.
so I feel like from that point on was when I really saw a lot more results with the people that I was working with. I got a lot better at assessing people. And it's led me up to this point where I was offered a space to make my own studio.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where I'm recording right now, in
Yeah.
my space, in my own studio. And I get to work with people the way that I want to and make connections with a lot of really great businesses that have like similar mindsets of like wanting to actually make a difference and
Yep.
wanting to be people. And it feels so good and so fulfilling and just exciting. Like it's been a long time since I've felt like genuinely excited for like what I'm doing on the daily.
I love that. It's been so cool to see like the process of you finally finding a space to train your own people, because since I was working with you, I've been like, you really need your own space so you can be making more money. Like you're worth way more than $20 an hour. Like, and there was like a couple of places that like weren't going to work out. And then this one just kind of fell in your lap. I was like, oh my
Yeah.
God, yes, take this one, take this one. And now like you're finally in it. And your first week you signed 2 clients and you signed another client the next week,
Mhm.
all at the new prices that I told you
Yep.
to.
Yep.
And you were so terrified to charge these prices. I remember you like having a freak out before you're in your space. You're like, I'm opening up this space, but I really don't think that people are going to pay this, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, just try it. Like, just try it. And then you signed 2 clients in your first week and they had no objections. I was like,
Yep.
I told you.
I remember that day too, like just your messages, and you're like, "This is what I've been telling you." Like,
I
oh my
know. And you're like, I'm so shocked. I was like, I told you. Like, it's so different. And also, I think a big part of it too is like when you are training people in this way that is not a stereotypical trainer of like, go faster or whatever. And like you're in a whole different like gym setting versus you're in your own studio. You're doing things your own way. It's just one person at a time. It's definitely way more elevated and high level. And that's why you can charge more, because you're not just a stereotypical personal trainer. You actually have methods behind what
Yeah,
you're doing, and they actually see results. It's not just this random shit.
exactly. Yeah. And I think like that's one reason why like the particular clients that did sign on with me were clients that they saw there was such an individual intention
Yes.
behind what I was giving them. And also, for one of them, she was like, "You're actually listening to me.
Wow.
Like, you're listening to what I'm saying." Because she had such a horrible experience one time. And we were actually talking about this morning, where she was just like, it kind of traumatized me, where it was like I was in so much pain and this person just kept pushing me, kept pushing me, kept pushing me, to the point that just like days after she just was like in so much pain. And now like this person, we just finished like her first actual training session, and by the time we were done she was like, I actually feel like I feel good, like I can move. And I'm
Wow.
like, that's exactly what we want.
Yeah,
She's
that's
like, I
exactly
feel
what.
great, I feel energized, and I'm moving better.
Yeah, that's exactly the whole goal. And you know what? Your trust just increased times 100 with this person, because you're giving them this experience they've never had with a trainer, and they're going to stay with you. Like when you have somebody who has had a bad experience and then you give them a completely different experience, that's just like, that's like clients for life,
Yeah.
that type of stuff, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. And I think too, it's kind of been a testament even to the people around me, because the space I'm in, it's me and three other businesses, and they're all in the health industry. So it's like a surgery, general surgery, um, medical clinic, just like general practitioner, and an IV therapy
Mm-hmm.
practitioner. And I took the medical doctor through a movement assessment. And when we were finished, he's like, I have never seen anything like this from anybody. Like, this is amazing. This is so cool.
Wow, that's huge to have a doctor say that. That's amazing. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, not only that, but like he had his assistant with him who was also a previous personal trainer, and he said the same thing. So it's like I
Wow.
have these two individuals who like they are very knowledgeable, and they,
Mhm.
they've been around the block, and it was like
Yeah.
very interesting to see their perspective on going through this movement assessment and the way that I handle new clients and like
Mm-hmm.
program for them.
Yeah. And also that should make your like skyrocket your confidence like times 100, Sierra. Because
Oh yeah.
like also that's like the chance for referrals. Like, you know who they're gonna send clients who want personal training to? You, because they know exactly how you treat people and how you are different. And so that's also huge for referrals as well. Um, so that's awesome. So I want to kind of transition into like you going through my group program, Mobility Makeover specifically, and how you learned, yes, you learned all these assessments, but you also learned how to like program for what you find. So talk a little bit more about like learning that. Did you find it easy to implement into your work with clients? Like talk a little bit about that.
Yeah. I think in the beginning, it was definitely a bit of learning and kind of like relearning and then unlearning what I had been doing. So the way that you taught me how to program was definitely a lot easier as a whole, because it's just like these exercises that apply to the person. Here's how to structure like sets and reps, and then you put it on repeat, and it's like that simple and that easy. So I feel like that was the first little piece, where it was like choose a set of exercises and then add this progression in over the weeks, instead of just like constantly changing things all of the time. And at first I was just like so weird. I'm just like, okay, hopefully my clients don't get mad at me.
Yeah.
And I feel like after the first like month or two was when I started to have it click a little bit more, because for me, I'm a very repetition based person. Like I do better with repeating things over and over and over.
Yeah.
So by that point, I had enough feedback on clients that I was working with. It's like I started to feel like I was a little more confident in writing down the exercises, writing down the programming and all the numbers. And then I felt like by that point, you started to, I guess, like started to say, like, this is a lot better. Like, you didn't have as much tweaks in that way. But then what that kind of transitioned into, because you really started to show me the movement assessment piece. And that was probably the biggest game changer, because taking the movement assessment and having a client go through it and then actually taking it, it's one thing to get the data, it's another thing to know what exactly to do with it. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
So by that point, it's like I had been kind of doing the movement assessment, but I was like, okay, I have this, but I don't know, like, okay, how does this apply to the program?
Right.
And so with that, that was incredibly helpful, because not only was I getting feedback on the actual exercises and making those connections, but also like the warm up. The warm up is specific, addressing these limitations and working on like these mobility like things. And kind of like going into your mobility makeover, right? That's what it's called. That was also very helpful, because it was just more in-depth education on every assessment, the why, what you're looking for and what it tells you. And then as you go through the program, it was super helpful to go through specific scenarios of like, okay, someone has shoulder pain, someone has back pain, someone has knee pain, and like, here's what to look at, here's what may or may not be the case with these people, and keep in mind. And that was very helpful, because there were some things like, I remember, like, if people had nerve pain, no idea what to do with that. Like, so stuff like that was just like super helpful. And I think having the consistency too of actually hanging out in your group fitness membership was really nice, because I mean, like, yeah, you're learning a lot, but it really helped just like consistently having these different people that you were giving feedback on. And it's like, it's so hard to learn everything all at once. You know what I mean?
Yes. Yeah, I totally know what you mean. So like, you being in the programming membership and hearing other coaches, client case study situations, right? You're talking about like, that was helpful for your learning as well, to hear me give feedback about other specific client scenarios, right?
Yes. Yeah. And I think as well, it was kind of nice, because like with the case studies as well, you kind of had us working on like, okay, what would potentially be good correctives for what is going on with this person. Like, you would have their assessment already written up from working with them or whatever. But then it's like, okay, you really did well on teaching us like what would help with this limitation, or like if they're having, I think one for me that's come up quite a lot with my own clients is in the lumbopelvic hip flexion test, people feeling it a lot in the back of their knees and their calves as opposed to their hamstring. And then knowing like, okay, adding something like nerve flossing would be very helpful and beneficial. It's like, that comes up for me
so much, right?
So often. So often. So I give that to people a lot. And it's so funny too, because I can always, like, I've said to people like, oh, do you have sciatic nerve issues by chance? Yeah. How did you know that?
Yep, exactly. Yep.
You know what I mean? Like, it is nice doing it with time, because you start learning these things and just like knowing the knowledge.
Yeah,
and it's so much easier to implement.
Exactly. Yeah. And like you're saying, it's like in the beginning when you're first learning all of this, it's like a little overwhelming, and you're like, there is that period where it feels like kind of clunky, but then the more repetition you get with it, with implementing it with your own clients, but also like those case study calls in mobility makeover. So helpful for that too, I feel like, because I've written up a sample client, someone who I've worked with before or whatever, and I'm like, this is what they're dealing with. Like, what would you program for it to help you guys connect? Like, okay, seeing this in real life can mean this, and like this is an example of how you can fix it.
100%. Yeah. I think another thing too with the mobility makeover in particular was sometimes there were issues that were so severe. You would show us how to program where working on those issues was actually a priority as opposed to doing a well-rounded program, which was also something that you would never be taught as a personal trainer. It's always like well-roundedness, which I mean is great, but in those scenarios where you have a client who's got such a bad like hip and they're unsteady and their core stability is horrible and like you know what I mean? Like you taught us how like for a time this needs to be the priority and this is what they're doing.
Yeah, exactly. It's like some people do need an unbalanced program if they have a very large issue going on.
Yes. Yeah. And that was another big thing, especially from the mobility makeover, because some of the case studies, that was the case. It's like they have this really, really bad issue that it's affecting their ability to do anything.
Yeah.
And they're in so much pain, like they can't sleep at night and things like that. So yeah, so for that one for sure, it was very nice. Well, and you also have, I don't know if you have it in this next one, but like the running program.
Yeah, running pain free. Yep, that's still in there.
That was actually very interesting also because you run into a lot of people who run.
Yes. Running is so common, so popular, and so many people deal with pains from running. So talk a little bit more about like how that was helpful for you.
I haven't gotten to use this as much as I would like, but more so lately since I've been in the space, I've had like a handful of people come in that are runners. And it's been interesting because you would assume that runners would have good mobility in their lower half and in their lower legs and also have good strength in those areas. And that has not been the case. Because stuff like calf strength and also learning that adductor strength is a huge deal when it comes to running.
Yep.
Being able to have good endurance in the lower legs for running, and finding that when I do test these people who are runners, it's like they can't do any of it. And it's like, okay, no wonder you're having knee pain. No wonder you're having foot pain and ankle pain. Like, so those scenarios that are in your mobility makeover where it's like specific towards people who are in a certain category of fitness was very helpful because you just run into those people quite often, really. It is nice because like when you do have those people come in, it's like, oh, I know exactly like what we can look at, what we can look for, what to prioritize, and
Yeah, I love that you brought that up because that also brings me into talking about back pain and knee pain. And something that you said earlier was that when you would have a client that would have these things like back pain or knee pain, you would be so scared and fearful, like, oh, just don't do this if it hurts, blah, blah, blah. Talk a little bit more about how actually learning more about these issues has made you more confident in like being able to work with these people.
Yeah, I think overall having a better understanding of like what is actually going on physically with them was a big deal. And then also just I didn't have as much knowledge and experience around people, especially if they were coming off of like I've had a few people come off of knee replacement surgery. Like they'll finish PT and then they'll come straight back to me. And it's like, I don't know what to do with this person. Like so I feel like in those scenarios in the very beginning, it was really nice being able to come to you with those issues and be like, okay, this person literally just got done with a replacement like 6 months ago. What do I do with them so I don't like make their recovery worse or like hinder it or get them injured? Like how do I do this and what do I look for? And that was a big point in that because I feel like you have the knowledge base and were able to kind of tell me, what should be fine, what to look for, what are the red flags also. That was very interesting. And that's been very helpful in sharing it with the client because that's a big problem as well as like clients don't always know what is a red flag and what isn't when it comes to pain
Exactly.
and also how to manage it as well. So in the beginning, it was still kind of like scary because I was like, I have no clue what I'm doing. And I know that we need to work on this knee that is trying to recover and get stronger. How do I do this in a way that makes sense? So I feel like for you, you gave a lot of feedback on those things and gave a lot more, I don't want to say unconventional exercises, but not as well known exercises that help correct what's going on. Like I had someone do VMO step ups the other day and they're like, I've never heard of this exercise before. Like,
Yeah.
And that's a really common exercise I use now for like knee rehab.
Right. Yeah, that's awesome. Talk a little bit about how this is different from a certification and like I guess just a little bit from like the differences of like yes someone's done some certifications or maybe even some continuing ed stuff, but like comparing that to like going through my program, how is it different, that sort of thing.
Yeah. So, and this is coming from someone who's had 4 certifications in different areas. I think the biggest thing is, so when you go through a certification, oftentimes it's self-paced, you're doing a lot of reading, and that information can be helpful, but the problem is there tends to be a disconnect between learning the information and then applying it in person. And also, how do you apply this information to diversity? Because not everybody is the same.
Yeah.
And it's really challenging if you run into these scenarios that it's like, okay, well, we didn't go over this in the certification, so I have no idea how to help this person. So worth working with you, I think that's the biggest thing is you will teach the knowledge, but you'll actually show us in real time with the clients that we have how to actually implement the knowledge that you're giving us. And on top of it, like troubleshooting too. Like that's the thing, is like as you learn these skills, you do get better at the programming, but you still like run into stuff that's like, is this the right choice? Is there something better? Like it's so nice to have a person that can actually talk to you and also just help talk you through things as opposed to just like, having a chapter or a module on something and you're like scrolling through trying to find the information you need to find out that it's like maybe they had a very short paragraph on it, but the information in there doesn't help you.
Right, exactly. So do you feel like you waste a lot less time?
Yeah. I love learning and I'm constantly learning new skills, but it definitely saves a lot of time if it's like I can just ask you and show you exactly what I'm doing and what I'm looking at.
Yeah. All right. So last question for you. What would you say to someone who is on the fence of joining Mobility Makeover, my group program, or working with me one-on-one for mentorship? Like, what would you say to that person?
I would say, like, I know for me, I was really scared to make the jump. And I think that it was 100% worth taking the risk and taking the jump. As much as it feels like the wrong thing to do or like you don't have the money, which in my case was often the case, is like I afford it. It's like figure out a way to afford the mentorship because at the end of the day, it's going to come back tenfold. and you're going to be so much farther, so much faster than if you're on your own. And especially if you're somebody that does way better with accountability as well, because I will tell you what, you can get called on your bull crap. But that's a good thing because it helps you learn and it helps push you outside of your comfort zone. And having Ashley as a coach, I know that I'm never by myself and I'm never without support. Like I'm not alone. And it's so much scarier. Like where you are right now, not having mentorship or not having anybody for support is so much scarier than actually having the mentorship. It just doesn't feel like that because you haven't taken that step yet.
I love that. That's so perfect. Like you're so right. I love that. That was awesome. Well, thank you so much for being on the pod. You're awesome. And I'm so excited to meet you in person at the retreat in like 8 weeks. So
I know. It's coming up so fast.
I know. All right. Well, thanks for being on, and I will talk to you guys later.